What's going on YouTube? It's Chris bringing you guys another Fantasy Puck video, and today we are going to be talking about the worst pick in every round, rounds 1 through 11, based off of Yahoo ADP. These are players that we believe that you should avoid taking given their currently slated ADP / round that they're poised to be projected in. And as always, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We got so much fantasy hockey content coming for you guys, especially with the season right around the corner. Definitely check out other platforms as well, including our Twitter for all those preseason lineup adjustments. Let's get right into the video, guys. And starting off things hot, yes, I know you're staring at Igor Shesterkin, the reigning Vezina Trophy winner from last year, as my round one worst pick available. Now, let me preface something first of all. I just want to be clear, there isn't a bad pick that you can take in the first round. This is a very difficult choice. Obviously, it doesn't matter where you really go here. I don't think you can be wrong in any sense. But typically, when it comes to the first round, we don't like to take goalie, and that's just because a lot of the time, the league scoring favors player categories more than it does goalie categories. I also want to be clear in saying that I don't think Igor's going to have a bad season. I don't think Igor is a bad goalie. I think he's obviously an incredible goaltender. But I think he's the worst pick in this round simply because, number one, you're taking a goalie. And number two, I still think that I would rather go with Andrei Vasilevskiy over Igor Shesterkin. Obviously, Shesterkin had a great year last year, posting a .935, which is absolutely absurd. But there's just so much consistency. There's so much sample in Vasilevsky's game that I just feel more comfortable taking him over Igor Shesterkin. And I think that in order for Igor to take over that solidified number one spot of goaltender in fantasy hockey, he would have to repeat and or have another similar season to the one that he had last year in order for me to rank him personally over Vasilevskiy. For our round two pick, we have JT Miller of the Vancouver Canucks, who had an absolutely incredible season last year with 32 goals, 67 assists for 99 points in 80 games with a 200 shot volume and 172 hits, just to round out his category stats. And the reason why I have Miller here at round two is I just think there is better options available to you. It's very unlikely that Miller sees this kind of production going into next season, and you just have more safer picks available to you. Mitch Marner's there, Crosby, Stamkos, COC. Like, there's so many good picks here, and I just think that banking on Miller getting another 99 points in a season, which I don't think he will ever repeat ever, it's just something that I'm not willing to take a risk on, especially with my second round pick. Now, the only upside that you could argue for taking Miller in the second round is just the fact that he hits a lot. But again, you can get that kind of later on in your draft, and I would rather go with a player that I know is likely going to get me close to 100 points or 45 goals around the second round. So for me, I would avoid Miller. For round three, we're going back to another New York goalie in Ilya Sorokin, and I know that he, again, had a really good season last year, but I think there's a lot of uncertainty with the Islanders coming into this season. No Barry Trotz, so we're really going to find out whether or not it was the system or the players that were able to keep the New York goaltending really in a position where they're being successful, limiting high danger chances and playing a more defensive style game. I just think that, like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty with that, what's going to happen with that team. And then you look at the available players in round three, and there's guys like Brady Tkachuk, Jake Gensel's available. There's good defensemen like Aaron Ekblad, John Carlson, Svechnikov's there. And then I think if you were going to take a goalie, I would much rather take Jacob Markstrom, who's slated to go in the third round, or even UC Saros, just two goalies that have a much higher volume. Those guys are going to hover around 60 games played this season, as well as I think a guy like Markstrom, for example, just has a much safer core of defense around him. And you know the Daryl Sutter system. You know how he likes to build his team to play a more defensive style game. And I'd just much rather go with a guy like Markstrom in Calgary, who's probably going to see a lot more wins than the Islanders do this season with a lot more certainty. So that's why Sorokin's an avoid for me in round three. For round four, we have Mark Stone of the Vegas Golden Knights. I talked about him in my Elite Players You Must Avoid video. And again, I just want to reiterate the fact that like Stone's a good player. I just think that in round four, it's not the best pick just because number one of the players available, but because Stone also lost 1/3 of that huge line in Vegas that was supposed to be slated to play together in Pacioretty, Eichel, and Stone. So that definitely doesn't help Stone's case. He also only played 37 games last year. He wasn't bad by any means, posting 30 points in that sense, but again, not a huge volume shooter guy by any means. Doesn't really hit or anything either. And if you go and look at the players available in round 4, I think there's just better options available to you. You've got guys like Eichel, Mort Seider, Jake Ottinger, Lindholm, I even think is a safer pick, Jason Robertson. Like there's just a lot more players that I'm be more enticed to pick and that have either a higher floor or higher ceiling than Stone. And just the fact that he plays such a defensive role as well, that I find that he doesn't really, like, you're really hoping for a 65, 70 point season out of him with 20 goals, because he won't get you the shot volume that you need and he won't get you the hit volume. So that's why Stone's an avoid for me in round 4. In round 5, we have Evgeny Malkin of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And this is just somebody that I think just doesn't do enough for me from a fantasy hockey perspective. Obviously, he's an incredible talent in the NHL, but Malkin really only hits 3 categories, which is goals, assists, and power play points. His shot totals are usually pretty low, hovering anywhere around from 130 to 170, and he doesn't really hit too much as well. The big thing for Malkin for me is the fact that he's incredibly injury prone and has shown that over the past 3 years. And just, I think that there's better options in round 5 available to you, especially that hit multiple categories. Guys like Evander Kane and Philip Forsberg definitely stand out to me in this round. And I think Malkin is just way too one-dimensional to go in round 5. If you get him late in your drafts, especially if you're in a points league, I think Malkin's a good option. But in standard leagues, for example, I don't get too excited about wanting to draft him, even though he's an incredibly talented player. In round 6, we have Nazem Kadri of the Calgary Flames, and he had an unbelievable year with the Avs last season. Definitely capitalized on the fact that McKinnon was injured and got to play those line 1 minutes. I expect his average time on ice to come down, and I expect his assist total to come down. I just think that there's good things about Kadri's game. The fact that he shoots the puck a lot. He surprisingly doesn't hit as much as you would think. And for me, Kadri is just one of those people that I think is just had a fantastic season. It's a one-off. It's a career year for him. I expect him to get back to where his normal stats were, around like 60 points, but he is good for a solid 30 goals if he stays healthy. And I just think that there's better options available, like I said, in round 6. You've got guys like Sam Reinhart, John Tavares, who I think are just much safer picks instead of taking a guy like Kadri, who is more than likely going to be in a shutdown role in Calgary. In round 7, we have another player that had an absolutely fantastic season, Matt Duchene, with 86 points in 78 games, posting a career year, especially in the goal category with 43. His prior highest total was 31 back in 2018-19 when he got traded from Ottawa to Columbus. And so for me, Duchene, the biggest concern is obviously his shooting percentage, which pretty much doubled last year in comparison to his 2 previous years with Nashville. And guys, this is a very big cause for concern. A lot of the times when you see this, especially such a high variation in shooting percentage, Duchene will likely regress back down to his career averages. So don't expect anywhere close to 40 goals for him. But I think he should still be solid. But there's just so many good players that I like in round 7. You've got guys like Rasmus Dahlin, Patrick Laine, Patrice Bergeron's there. I think Mackenzie Weegar's a really good pick in that round as well. Because of the crazy high variation in shooting percentage and the likelihood that Duchene won't repeat this season, I'd much rather go with one of the players that previously mentioned in round 7. Round 8, we have Jonathan Quick of the LA Kings, and the Kings really surprised people along with Jonathan Quick last year. This is the first time in 4 years that Quick's had over a 905 save percentage, and I just think that given his age that he should see a little bit of regression. He's also in a round where I like a lot of people, which is round 8. We've got guys like Noah Dobson, Tim Stützle, Miro Heiskanen, Werenski, Burns. Like the list goes on in round 8 for me. So Quick is just the guy that I saw that just I felt didn't really belong there. If you get him later on in your drafts, I don't think it's a bad option just as like a 1B. But I think for round 8, Quick is just a little bit too high for me. In round 9, we have Torrey Krug of the St. Louis Blues, and I really don't think Torrey Krug's that bad of a pick. It just happened to be that the round that he fell in, there was a lot more defensemen that I would prefer to take over a guy like Torrey Krug. And yeah, he had a good season total last year for sure. 58 points in 66 games, hovering around a point per game as a defenseman. Getting him this late in the draft, I think is definitely valuable. But I think going into next season, there's players that I would rather have that fall in round 9. Dougie Hamilton is somebody that really stands out to me just because of his crazy high shot volume. as well as there's Evan Bouchard, who I think is going to take over power play 1 for the Edmonton Oilers. There's even Jacob Trouba, who I think adds a lot of value because he hits so much as well. And I just think that I'd much rather have those 3 defensemen than Torrey Krug in round 9. Round 10, we've got Tony DeAngelo of the Philadelphia Flyers, and that in itself just tells you everything you need to know. The fact that he's moved from a high offensive team like Carolina to the Philadelphia Flyers, who are missing guys like looks like Couturier for another season. And to me, like, the only reason why you would take DeAngelo in the first place is for his points totals and his power play time. And I think he'll get power play 1 time in Philadelphia, but I really don't like the fact that he doesn't shoot a lot, he doesn't hit, and now he's going to a much, much worse team where he's going to probably be hemmed in the defensive end for the majority of the game. And so I'm really off DeAngelo. There's so many better options in round 10. Thomas Chabot, who shouldn't even be in round 10, is available. You've got guys like Brad Marchand, who could be a sleeper pickup there. Braden Point as well. Like, I'm just avoiding DeAngelo altogether, but especially in round 10. Rounding out our list in round 11 is Seth Jones of the Chicago Blackhawks. And even though Jones had a pretty decent year offensively last year with 51 points in 78 games, he is playing on the Chicago Blackhawks and posted a staggering minus 37 last year. And I just expect the same out of this year, guys. Like, Jones definitely has value when it comes to shots and hits and even blocks. He had 155 blocks. If you play blocks, then he's definitely a solid option. But just the fact that his plus minus is so ridiculous, and he's playing on Chicago with absolutely nobody to play with outside of Patrick Kane, even on the power play, I'm just completely off Jones. I think there's better options in round 11 as well. You've got guys like Jesper Bratt. You've got guys like Rupe Hintz available to you, Robert Thomas, just a lot better options for you to choose from in round 11. So that's why I'm completely avoiding Seth Jones, especially if you count plus minus in your leagues. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a comment down below if there's a player that I mentioned that you don't think is an absolute avoid in that current round. Let me know in the comments down below. Really interested to hear your guys' feedback, as well as leave a like on the video if you guys enjoyed it. I will see you guys in the next video. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.